Leading in Ministry is a video podcast designed to share anecdotal information that helps equip leaders in practical ways. Personal stories help drive the points home while making it both entertaining and informative.
We are honored today to have Dr. Talmage Johnson with us for this podcast. Dr. Johnson has been a longtime friend to Cheryl and I. It's been a number of years ago that we first met. I believe that was probably back in Oklahoma or in that area. But you were talking the other day to me and mentioning I'm here at Westside Church of the Nazarene in Indianapolis, serving as the executive pastor. And you told me a story about you were just in your early 20s, and I think you were here at Westside. Just share that with our audience, would you?
Well, thank you, Don. Yes, my first visit to Indianapolis Westside was the week before I graduated from Bethany Nazarene College, now Southern Nazarene University. It was an incredible experience that I claim a fame to because Bill, Danny, and Marianne Gaither were the music people. He graduated, I think, about the same time I did. He graduated from Anderson. So I've always kind of pointed back to the fact that I had a claim to fame.
Well, how about that?
I worked with the Gaithers.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, I know that to go back at age your early 20s, you have a long history of moving through leadership positions, and today I wanted to sort of just focus on transition in leadership. And you've experienced a lot of that through your years. Sort of highlight what some of that looked like as you journeyed through your life there. Well,
thank you, Don. It is an incredible journey in many ways, in that my life basically has totally been immersed in the life and times of the Church of the Nazarene.
Yeah.
In fact, my parents met at Northwest Nazarene College, Nampa, Idaho, and I was born in Nampa, Idaho, and I tell people that before I was a Christian, I was a Nazarene because it was a Nazarene-owned and operated hospital. When I was 6 months old, my dad accepted a church actually in Longview, Texas. So from place to place, living in a pastor's home, a number of moves, ended up in Oklahoma. And it was at age 17, Don, that I had an incredible defining experience. I believe you could refer to it as a sanctifying moment, at which time I settled some real important questions in my life, including what I believe to be God's call on my life, which was to be a preacher.
Sure.
So I engaged in that from that day forward, and being not far from the location of what is now Southern Nazarene University, I enrolled as a religion major. I graduated from there in 1958. Went back later when I was near there in a pastorate, and I was a little bit like the fellow that left college and was going to set the world on fire and had to go back and get some more matches. So I went through the first master's program there at Bethany and I graduated from that. In my ministerial journey, I did, just out of college, I evangelized for 3 years. Janelle and I were married soon after graduating from college, and we had a son, our eldest son, Michael, was traveling with us, and when he was about 18 months old, we decided it might be good to think of a more settled situation. And that's when we had the call to go to Elk City, Oklahoma. Pastored there 4 years, and That's where Jeffrey, our son, was born. Both of our sons, Michael and Jeffrey, are engaged in the life and ministry of the Church of the Nazarene.
You had
Michael,
mentioned something, Dr. Johnson, the other day to me about Jeffrey. There's something unique about that as far as I know that at one point you were a district superintendent, but what can you highlight that for me?
yes, I'd be happy to. Jeffrey has a unique, you might say, mark in that he is a fourth generation district superintendent. My mother's father, Reverend Earl C. Pounds, was a district superintendent in the early days of the church. And then my own father served for 29 years as a district superintendent in Oklahoma. I went to Mississippi in 1975 as a district superintendent. And now for 6 to 7 years, Jeffrey has served and is serving as the district superintendent of the South Texas district.
Wow,
So
that is
we have
amazing.
that, and our lives, like I say, are intertwined in the life of the church. Michael, very engaged, while not a preacher as such, definitely a minister, director of alumni and church relations at Trevecca Nazarene University, and a member of the general board of the Church of the Nazarene. So
Yeah.
God's been
Wow.
good to us. We have a real connection to the church that we love.
Wow, what a tremendous family that you have to be engaged in ministry on the levels that you have been. And I know you were saying that your first pastorate was there in Elk City, and then you had gone to Western Oaks for a bit as well, didn't you?
That is correct. We were at Elk City for 4 years, and that was on the main street of America, Highway 66, and had 4 good years there.
Yeah,
And then we went to Oklahoma City to plant a church, which is known as Oklahoma City Western Oaks Church.
yeah.
And we were there for 10 years until we received the call to go to Mississippi.
And then in Mississippi, you were a district superintendent.
For 5 years, and had a wonderful experience there. It was an awesome,
Yeah,
life-changing experience, and I might allude to that at some point. And
yeah, I
then
do want to know about that. But
okay,
why don't you after Mississippi? Where did you? What did you
we,
do then?
we came to Tennessee, where I served as a matter of record for 15 years as district superintendent.
Okay.
And then was called to go to headquarters to be director of Sunday school ministries in the church, and those were great years, Don, as Sunday school ministries. And then
Sure.
in 2001, was elected to be a general superintendent in the Church of the Nazarene. Since then, I did an interim for almost 3 years in Oklahoma, and then for a few months in Kentucky. But that's been pretty much the journey, and God
Yeah.
has been good.
Well, I'm just about tired just listening to that. That is a long list. And certainly you have experienced a lot of transition in your life as far as leadership transition. But if you were to just focus on something that was one of your most rewarding accomplishments through that journey that you've just talked about, what would that be?
Well, it might be twofold. One might be I felt particularly rewarded as director of Sunday school ministries. It was a time in the life of not just the Church of the Nazarene, but others where the questions were being asked, will the Sunday school survive? And God helped us with a wonderful team to put together teach conferences that went coast to coast, Canada and Alaska.
Yeah.
We did that in 1996 and again in 2000. That was a very fulfilling time, and the church became engaged, and we saw some good days. I suppose perhaps one of the greatest challenges, Don, had to do with what you might call a dramatic cultural change, in that we had spent our lives there in Oklahoma and pretty much connected with what was happening in the area there. And our sons had never changed schools.
Yeah.
Michael was grades 1 through 9 and Jeffrey 1 through 6. We got the call to go to Mississippi. When I went to Mississippi, I suppose in addition to just the dramatic transition of just the change culturally, was the reality of how that impacted our ministry in the life of the church.
Mm-hmm.
For in going to Mississippi, we soon discovered that it was no secret that the population makeup there was 45% African American and 55% white. And when I went to Mississippi, I felt like God gave me a love for the people
Oh, wow.
to
Yeah.
begin with immediately. And that happened with our family. And that is a love relationship that developed so strongly that it shaped our sons' lives and Janelle and me to the extent that we've never been the same. Well,
Wow.
in that process, there was only one significant black church, and that was in Meridian, Mississippi. And that's where Charles Johnson was the pastor. So being young, being new, and trying to get a sense of perspective, Janelle and I went over there for a Sunday morning. This was when they just had a very small church facility. The building was very small.
Yeah.
But we went home with them for Sunday dinner. And that day he had special guests that are icons in the church, Roger Bowman and Clarence Bowman, both leaders in the Church of the Nazarene. And so I sat at the kitchen table with them, and I said, gentlemen, particularly to Pastor Charles, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I need your help. I had a good moment when I first met him in the Get Acquainted tour on the district. For during that early moments, there was a kind of a wall. I could tell that he was just looking me over. What's this? Another guy that's just going to ignore us or what? And when I was preaching in that service that night, I don't know what I did, but something happened that Charles kind of came alive. And when he came alive, his people came alive, and they were very responsive.
Wow.
After the service at a reception, he came up to me and standing by my side, he said, you know, you're a Johnson, I'm a Johnson. I think if we check our family tree, we might be cousins. And I said, and I put my arm around him, not cousins, but brothers.
Oh,
And
wow.
that developed a strong relationship. Well,
Yeah.
when I asked that question at the table, he said, all we want is to feel a part. And God helped us, Don, in those years to see that church and to see Charles Johnson embraced. In about 2 years, he was elected to the district advisory board. Later, he was district Sunday school chair. He was a delegate to the General Assembly. He was even engaged with the Church of the Nazarene in ethnic ministries.
Wow.
Today, and of course, we got the church relocated there with the help of Alabaster and Dr. Raymond Hearn at the time. They have a nice facility, and it was an incredible experience. And today, Charles Johnson is still the pastor at Meridian Fitkins Memorial. He is an icon in Meridian, Mississippi.
Wow.
In fact, they named the street in front of his church Dr. Charles Johnson Boulevard.
Oh,
And,
my.
but he's been there 58 years. I believe that is the longest tenure of any pastor in the Church of the Nazarene pastoring at the same church.
That is so amazing.
That's the only church he's ever pastored.
Yeah. You know what stands out to me when I was listening to you talk about that cultural challenge that you had there, it just you know, in a day when it's so, you know, we'll hear it in the news about the racial divide or just the stereotypes that can be so prevalent. You know, as a Christian, if we really genuinely are sincerely following Christ, there are no stereotypes. There are no barriers that that's all. It all comes down, doesn't it? Because we genuinely love our brother or our sister.
I think it comes down to a matter of personal relationships. We
Yeah.
have to establish persons, and it just like I heard just yesterday, how that John Maxwell said that the lessons he learned from his dad, and he said his dad said, every morning you get up, son, value people, believe in people, love people unconditionally. And
Mm.
God helped us to do that with Charles. And to
Mm.
this very day, I think we talk, if not every week, we talk very frequently.
Yeah.
He'll check on me and I'll check on him.
But we
And,
love on purpose. And, you know, those things are not just something that happens unintentionally. It's with intention and purpose, isn't it?
well, I believe that to be true. It's been amazing to see what God has done in and through the life of Charles Johnson and that church.
Wow.
I celebrate, and that was, I think, a challenge that had a very positive outcome, and it's one that lives on today.
That's amazing. What, tell me something that in all of those years that you were doing ministry, is there anything that pops into your head that just was sort of one of those humorous moments? Sometimes people really enjoy finding out or discovering things that are, you know, that sometimes we don't talk about a lot. But do you have one of those
Well,
stories to share?
I think, of course, a number of things come to my mind, but I think one that comes to my mind is what happened to Janelle and me in Papua New Guinea. We had jurisdiction of Asia Pacific and got to go to Papua New Guinea in succeeding years there. And of course, Kuchip is the headquarters there of our missions. It's where the hospital is, which is an incredible agency of healing for that nation. And so on Sunday, Vern Ward, the director, said, we're going to go over here to Tambon. Now, it's not very far, and it's kind of in a kind of a farm-like community. And he said, now something may happen there that you probably will not be expecting, but we want to give you a little heads up. He said they may want to carry you into the church. And so when we got there, they had kind of prepared a walkway with arches with flowers and stuff on it, and the first one to be picked up was Janelle, and I said, this is going to be interesting. Well, what was kind of humorous to me is that two, I want to say it cautiously here, but two very substantially constructed women um, said to Janelle as they locked their hands, they said to her, "Now you just fall back and sit kind of in this cradle here, and we're going to carry you." And I saw them carry her ahead of
Oh,
me.
my word.
The two men then that stepped up to me were not as nearly as strong structurally as those women were,
Yeah.
and so they did the same thing, and locked their hands, and we made it in and lived to tell about it. That was kind of the entrance into the Tambon Church, but
Let
something
me,
happened
oh,
in the. Go ahead.
well, let me ask you, there weren't cell phones back in those days, I guess, or were there?
No,
So we don't have any video
I
footage of
I
that.
don't. We do have some pictures of that,
Okay.
but and they were taking pictures. Of course, that was 2002, so it was there was limited cell phone connection.
I
Uh,
got you.
but something happened in the sanctuary or in the church service. They had a great group of young people that sang. It was a blessing. And so I was preaching about let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. In my Father's house are many mansions. So I was talking about heaven, and I got carried away, and preaching through a translator and all, you sometimes lose your train of thought.
Yeah.
And I said, the wonderful thing about heaven, there'll be no sickness, there'll be no pain, there'll be no heartache, there'll be no doctors in heaven. Well, immediately when I said that, I could tell the people who understood English were astonished, because sitting right there in front of me was Dr. Jim Radcliffe, who had performed 600 surgeries every year, and they were hearing there won't be any doctors in heaven. So will Dr. Jim make it? So I had to kind of live that down. That was
Yeah.
a special memory, Don, that we cherish to this day.
That's so neat. I just had this thought. You, of course, alluded and identified this long journey that you've had, and there's been a lot of transition. What do you think was the secret? Because to go through as many transitions as you did as a leader, your family survived that very, very well. I mean, sometimes it feels like to me that the potential to lose your kids in that kind of transition, as much as that you had, is a really strong possibility. What was the secret? Because wow, your kids are all serving God and serving in tremendous leadership roles now. What was the secret?
I think perhaps one of the major things is that I lived in a home where love was modeled for my sister and me, and it was a dramatic change for Michael and Jeffrey. And the first year, it was really a challenge, because the dramatic difference in the school makeup and all, and it just became such a challenge. But God helped us to personally love and stay close to Michael and to Jeffrey. I had a good relationship with the principal of the Jim Hill High School where Michael was, and Michael became heavily influenced there with the fact that his journalism teacher was Mary Meredith, the wife of James Meredith, the first black man to ever attend Ole Miss. And he had her for 2 years and just developed a great relationship. And Michael probably had every position in the school that you could have, maybe except student body president.
Wow.
When it came time for Jeffrey to go into high school, we lived we had a relocation of the district parsonage, and we were just 5 minutes away from the school that he was supposed to go to. And he said, no, I want to go to Jim Hill, that inner city school where my brother went. And so we made arrangements, and he did that. I went to more ball games there and I prayed at more ball games. And their football team needed prayer because they'd lost 44 games in a row. But I don't think my prayers ever helped them on that. It had an impact. Now, they were great in basketball, and Michael played baseball. And I went to an awful lot of baseball games and soccer games with Jeffrey, and tennis and all that. But I think one of the things that really made a difference is that even in the public mind and eye, non-Nazarenes, they knew that we cared.
Yeah.
And they cared for us.
Yeah.
And Michael and Jeffrey both, Michael in particular, still has friends on Facebook that were classmates of his in Jackson, Mississippi.
Right.
And so how did that happen? I think love is the key. I think God helped us. It took a lot of prayer. It was a dramatic shift when we left Oklahoma, but when we left Mississippi, it was a traumatic experience, and we believed it to be in God's will.
Sure.
But, we loved the people of Mississippi, and they loved us.
Well, I think I heard you say this. And sometimes I believe this could be part of the success there. You said you really engaged in their lives and their activities. I think a real danger for a lot of leaders might be that they get so wrapped up in their own job that they can easily forget about really what's the most valuable and important thing, which is to stay engaged with their family.
Well, we certainly tried to do that, and
Yeah.
God honored it. God helped us, and it to this day, Michael and Jeffrey have a character that that runs deep, and they have a very wholesome attitude and disposition when it comes to people
Hmm.
of all backgrounds, of all races, and it's made a difference for them into how they love and lead, and they're
Yeah.
both leaders in their own right.
Yeah. And you know what? They've benefited from all of the things that you have engaged in. I mean, that was a rich heritage and rich cultural a learning process. Just the fact of where you've been, your journey all through those years. So that certainly has been a benefit for them.
Well, it certainly has proven to be true.
Yeah. Um, so let me go to one other thing before we end this podcast today. Um, I know that you're now a retired general superintendent in the Church of the Nazarene. I guess general superintendent emeritus would be your title. But certainly, I think that through the years, sometimes I'm just going to say it the way that it comes out from me. I'm not going to be as careful as what you might need to be, but I think through the years, we have a lot of friends, but sometimes I think the question is, are they really our friends, or are they just our friends for what they might get? And so, you've been a general superintendent. I'm sure that you've had a lot of friends, but then all of a sudden, there's this pivotal moment where you now have transitioned to a new season in your life. And I've heard other leaders say, well, I don't know where all my friends are, but I can't hardly imagine that to be true with you, because the generous, gracious person that you are, I think you've developed a lot of genuine friends over the years. But what's it like in a leadership role when you're now in this new season? And I'm positive there's got to be some challenges that we never think about through the years when we're so busy doing what we do.
Well, that's a good question, and it's one that causes me to be honestly reflective on. I can honestly say, Don, that I think one of the things that helped me enter into the transition is that I had been able to keep position, and I have, through the kindness of people and the church and God's providence, had a number of positions. But it's been possible to keep it all in perspective. I think one of the things that helped me in that regard is my dad taught me a number of things. He said, Talmadge, always be thankful, always respect those that are older than you, and Talmadge, don't ever be too impressed with your position. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Uh-huh.
And I think that helped me. It is true. I had the honor of serving on the general board for 18 years. I was general youth president. I had all of these positions, but it seemed like God helped me to always realize that I am here by the grace of God. I'm not anybody great. I'm just a vessel that God has blessed, and the church has been good too. So that when I came to the end of it, and of course, my journey as superintendent was determined by my birthday. I had colleagues who were born in the same year I was, but because my birthday became before the General Assembly, um, I was not eligible to be reelected.
Uh-huh.
In a sense, that's been good because I've had more years to experience kind of freedom from the responsibilities that go with it,
Sure.
and yet enjoy the blessings.
Yeah.
So I did refer earlier to the fact that I did an interim as superintendent in Oklahoma and then a short-term interim in Kentucky. But I think through it all, God's helped us to always maintain a sense of loyalty to our local church, where
Hmm.
we attend the campus church here at Trevecca Community Church, and at this time we're in a kind of a rotation in our class of Sunday school teachers. We have associates there that make it a special place, and so that gives us an opportunity to be engaged to the
Sure.
limit that we desire to be.
Sure.
Um, and, um, and quite frankly, having traveled like we did the roads of Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and the airways, um, it's not it's not necessarily a craving.
Yeah,
Where do we get to travel to today?
that's right.
And now we still like to go. Janelle looks at every map and says, "I want to go here. I want to go there." And yet we know that in some respects, there's a great old country song, Don. I don't know whether you've heard this great old gospel song or not, but it simply says, "My can do can't keep up with my want to." Uh, so,
Well,
so there's some things, Don, that maybe we'd like to do and like to go, but we just
it's a
we
new
have
season.
found that this season in life is still a blessed time.
Yeah, well,
And
I think you know what I find so encouraging is the contentment that I feel or sense from you just listening to you, and I think that's a key point is that you can be content no matter what the season of life that you're in. And another thing that really stood out to me. Um, when I was listening to you there a moment ago, talk about the positions that you have served in, and yet your identity, while you felt very honored to serve in all of those positions, your identity was not necessarily wrapped up in that, but your identity was always in Christ, and you never lost that
well,
focus.
that is a very true statement, and I think that is the bedrock that holds me. I quote it often: "My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I
Yeah,
dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name.
yeah,
On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking
wow,
sand."
yeah,
That has held me steady even to this day.
yeah,
And his oath, his covenant, his blood support me in the whelming flood when all around my soul gives way. He
mm,
then is all my hope and stay. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. I think in the midst of the turmoil of the world's crisis right now,
hmm,
and the pandemic and all that it affects us internationally, globally, and in every respect, the thing that holds me steady is my personal relationship with Jesus, and He is my all in all.
wow. That is such a key for me because at the end of the day, all of those other things, as great as they are, there's only one thing that matters. It's what our relationship is with Jesus Christ. I'm grateful today for you and thank you for the inspiration that you have been.
Well, thank you, Don, and what a joy it's been to talk with you today. And I wish the best for Cheryl and you and your ministry. You've had a wide swath of ministry and evangelism now in the local church. And I
Sure.
just pray God's richest blessings on you. And I remember when you wanted to play golf, and I gave you your first golf lesson.
You're not gonna tell anything about that now, are you?
I'll never forget that, playing down Tishomingo, Oklahoma, near Camp Bond.
Yeah.
And we went out. I had some clubs, and we went to a very pitiful golf course. And I could tell.
Were you impressed with my drive? Is that what it is? You're recalling that impressive drive that I had?
Yeah. I think the biggest drive you made was just getting to the course. And now I know that with your son Eric being your mentor, you are an incredible golfer, and so I celebrate that. I would also say that the transition has been empowered not only by the grace of God and personal relationship with Him, but the incredible love of our family. Michael, Jeffrey, and their families, now numbering not only 5 grandchildren and spouses, but 8 great-grandchildren. We are loved, and we love them back. And God is so good.
Wow. What a beautiful family. And we just wish you God's very best in these days.
Thank you so much. And I wish you the best.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment right now to hit share and include a comment.